Hello, my gorgeous soul. Welcome to this episode of Cosmic Imprint with me, your host, Rose. I am so delighted to have you joining me today to tune in to this episode where I am going to break down and talk about the three main things that I have learned along my indie author, self-published authorship journey so far that I really felt called to come and speak to, because we can all Google the kind of basic 10 steps of how to become self-published. We can Google our way to learning how to write a book. We can Google all we like about the basics of the how. But what I wanted to come and speak to in this episode is the other aspects, the other energetics around self-publishing, and the things that I have personally found and learned in just this kind of realm of self-discovery and self-exploration that self-publishing and becoming an author really entails. And I want to kind of speak to this in the lens of what it means for me personally as an author, but also, like, if you are a creative, if you are someone here to share your soul medicine with the world, whatever way, shape, or form that looks like. I'm going to speak to this through the lens of being an author, but this has got kind of the resonance and the energetic alignment for you, no matter whether you are a writer or intending to be a writer, or whether you are someone who is more comfortable in creative self-expression through other modalities or other formats. This is going to have some resonance for you, because this is just in general what it's like to be, the learnings around being someone who is here to express their artistry, who is here to express their creativity, and who is here to share their soul medicine as someone who is a witchy, woo-woo, intuitive, modern mystic goddess in this lifetime, in this incarnation. So I really want to extend that invitation for you to consider this through your own perspective of what it means for you, wherever you are at in your soul journey as well, with what it is that you are here to share. Because I know many of you who are longtime listeners of this podcast and, reach out to me all the time with your beautiful DMs and screenshots and tags and shares, that you are people who are, on that journey yourself and really learning how to grow in that confidence towards sharing your soul calling work and your artistry and your creativity in whatever shape or form that takes for you personally. Because there are many of you who are writers in this space, in this community. There are many of you who are podcasters. There are many of you who are YouTubers. There are many of you who are simply showing up and curating in a very artistic way what it is that you are sharing with the world through, say, an Instagram platform, or in-person events, or hosting retreats, or, celebrating with others in women's circles and moon circles, and all of these other beautiful ways that are also valid when it comes to talking about our creativity and our self-expression. Because we don't show up and do our soul work without bringing every kind of ounce or flavor and uniqueness to us along with that, right? We don't do it in isolation from who we are or what we're about. We are giving our all to our soul work, our soul business, our soul essence that we are representing and sharing with others, and creating those beautiful ripple effects with others. So I think it's something that, while I can speak to my own experience, and obviously I've been through many iterations of other ways that I have shown up and shared my voice or shared my message and my modalities, has evolved and grown and expanded. And I've, had the everything from the experience of like the in-person events, the in-person retreats, through to obviously this podcast and this my YouTube channel, and through to, writing and authorship. And so it's that full spectrum of creative self-expression. And, for any of you who've read my book Soulpreneur, you'll know as well, like, that I had a whole business prior to kind of what you know and see me as these days, within my soul work, that was graphic design and, design work. And so that element of creativity has been and artistic expression, I should say, has been so ingrained in everything I've done for a really long time that for me, when we talk about creativity and we talk about artistry, I see it through such a lens that it's like it goes so far beyond probably some of the ways we've been conditioned to think about creativity or being a creative as being these kind of purely black and white categories or boxes that, oh, well, you're either an author or a writer or a photographer or a videographer, or you create art, as in like a artist or a designer. These things now are getting broken down into being so much more than just a category, one particular element that you might identify as. And there are all these multifaceted, multi-hyphenate ways that we can show up and share our soul artistry. And spaces like Instagram, for all we want to say about them, have really allowed us to break down some of those structures and systems and old paradigm ways of looking at artistry and soul expression, because we are able to be an artist as much as we are able to share our voice, as much as we're able to, create incredible value to give and to share and to support our communities with and connect over. We can do so in such a visually stimulating way or such a visually inspiring way. And that's why for me personally, something like Instagram has been such a integral part of the way I've grown in my soul work, because it really has always appealed to me in terms of the visual factor, the visual element, being able to curate a gallery, that for me is so aligned, and you will have, if you've listened to my podcast for a while now, you know that there's many elements within my own like human design and astrology that all lean towards that kind of gallery curation and curated eye around the visual elements and the visual aspects and things, which is why, for some people it's not such a big deal, and there are people who, just purely distilling down the essence of what they're here to share and sharing that in a really potent, straightforward way, and kind of like fuck the graphic that goes along with it. Like that doesn't matter, because they're here to just channel that insight and that wisdom and to share it really potently. Yes, absolutely. Like there is need for those people to express in that way. For me, it's always going to have that element of the curated imagery as well, that the visual aspect is as much of the channeled message as my words and my, what I might speak to, for example. So that's something I always give myself permission around. So, it's really that journey as creatives that we go on is so personal to each and every one of us. But I know that there are going to be threads in terms of speaking about this and sharing about this, that there's going to be those of you who, maybe needed to hear this or are going to resonate in terms of how my experience and my journey has brought these topics up that I wanted to come and share with you. So in terms of my journey and my self-publishing journey as an indie author, the first thing that I really want to speak to in terms of these things that I have learned along my way is around the emotional journey of being an indie author, the emotional journey and progression that I've been through over the past year. I mean, longer if I look at my entire creative journey, but, just in terms of from the moment in time of actually staking my claim and, saying that I really had set that intention about a year ago, pretty much this time last year, around, yes, I am going to embrace this new season of life, of stepping fully into my authorship and owning that and speaking about it and, changing my bio online and all of these sorts of little pieces that finally allowed that to be something that I was actually putting out into the world in a very obvious kind of, yes, this is who I am and this is what I'm about kind of way, and not hiding behind some other label or name or, kind of bio explanation. And that emotional journey of allowing myself to step into that, and just how much the mindset piece, the self-development piece, the clarity on my own unique energetics, like those have been, by far and large, the biggest things when it comes to this journey for myself personally, because I prior to any of that knowledge, if I had started my journey as an author, kind of earlier on, I would have been comparing myself to others. I would have been looking at what other people had achieved or their practices of how they go about achieving what they're doing in terms of authors, publishing, creatives, sharing their work. I would have looked at how other people were marketing themselves, promoting themselves, networking, hosting events, launching their books even. And now for me, I have because I've done so much of my own mindset and self-development work over the years, I really truly know myself when it comes to what is aligned for me, what intuitively is a good fit for me for where I'm at right now. And also, what do I desire to expand into that is actually aligned for me, that isn't just sort of going, oh, well, this is what everyone else does, so therefore I should be doing this too as an author, or that's how everybody else does it, so I'm going to put that pressure on myself that I should be doing that myself. And that emotional journey around that has been such a crucial part of my own authorship experience, because it is a fucking emotional journey. We can have so many moments along the way where we end up doubting ourselves, where we doubt our creativity, where we doubt our ability to live up to our own fucking pressure and expectations around things, never mind what we might experience from the outside world, the conditioning we might have been raised with or exposed to over time. There is so many nuances that come into it that are really all part and parcel of that emotional journey. And that for me has been probably the most surprising thing, but also the most unsurprising thing, right? Like, I definitely didn't quite expect it to be as emotional as it has been. But I also at the same time reflect on it and think, well, of course, it's like a no-brainer, right? Like, this is literally pouring your heart out into your work, your words. You're putting something on a page that is so deeply personal, from the way you phrase things to the way you type things to the way you sit down and spend time with your art and dedicate yourself to what you're doing in whatever shape or form that looks like for you, right? Because dedicating ourselves to something doesn't mean having to sit there for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. It can look like that if you're in your flow and you're in your zone and you're like really on a roll. But, half an hour of really focused, intentional writing can trump, 8 hours of nothingness and misery within our creativity. So, time gets detached from these things, and that productivity, that toxic productivity culture gets detached from our needs to be detached from our creative self-expression as well. But, in terms of that understanding that all of those things are so deeply personal to each and every one of us as a creative. And, I really want to frame that in through the lens as well of look at that with the reference of whatever it is that is your creative self-expression. So whether that is social media is your creative self-expression for your business, your soul work, whether it is that you are a creative in the traditional sense of, photography, art, making something with your hands, distilling your life force into your artistic expression through your words, maybe poetry, maybe writing, maybe speaking, like public speaking even, podcasting, creating something for YouTube through that videography style lens or methodology, right? Like, there are so many ways that can apply when we're talking about this and the emotional journey that comes with it. And I really want to encourage you to recognize within yourself, like, where are you maybe not giving yourself credit for how challenging that emotional journey can be. Obviously, it can be amazing. It can be really wonderful. It can be so rewarding. And it is, ultimately. But there are going to be many days when you have to be your own greatest champion. You have to be your own greatest cheerleader. You have to show up and do the thing without necessarily knowing who is on the other end of that artistry, that creativity, right? Like, you have to trust where you're led and what is inspiring you and what is calling you forward to express what it is you're here to express. And know that by you showing up in your magnetism and in your power, you are aligning with something that is such a frequency that is always going to find its home. It's always going to find its people. It's always going to find its place in this world. And sometimes, again, we have to step back and detach from linear expectations or very like old paradigm return on investment style outcomes, because it's not always that linear expression. It's not always that ability to see the exact outcome at the other end of the thing. So we have to trust, we have to allow ourselves the journey, and we have to allow ourselves to embrace like the emotional side of it as much as anything. So then the second thing I want to speak to within this conversation is around the gratitude that I have, not only cultivated throughout this process, but this journey, but also that has been newly found, in terms of gratitude for just how easy it has been to become self-published, to be an indie author, to share my artistry. Sorry, my dog's going to bark right in the middle of my podcast episode, which is always a fun addition to these podcasts. So allowing myself, to cultivate that gratitude, but also recognize the new elements of gratitude that I didn't quite have an appreciation for before starting this journey. And again, I want to reference this through the lens of, I'm speaking about this from the perspective of authorship and writing. However, the gratitude for how easy it is to share our soul work with the world. It's never been easier. Like the internet and online spaces and online resources and online tools that we can use have just made it more and more and more accessible for those of us who have felt that soul calling to share our soul work, to share our artistry, to share our creativity, to be able to do so. And that's something I've really been reflecting on the gratitude around, because I can literally sit here, right here where I'm recording this episode. I can be working on my book. I can be editing my book. I can be connecting with my soul community. I can be watching book purchases roll in. I can be getting tagged in DMs and comments and Instagram stories of people who have just purchased my book. I can absolutely do everything I need to do, right through to the cover art, to the book blurb, to the editing and proofing and submitting to my publisher and distributor. And I don't even have to leave this chair. Now, I don't know about you, but as someone who is a mental projector, who is a 6-2 profile, who is highly empathic, intuitive, sensitive little baked potato, like the fact that I can do all of that from right here in this perfect environment that I have curated for myself to support myself as a creative, as a writer, and as an author, it just fucking blows my mind. And I am so fucking grateful for it, because in the past, and I'm talking like even just recent past, right? Like we're not talking 100 years ago here. We're talking like 5 years ago. That entire process would have looked so different. So different. Some of those elements would have been available. Some of those pieces of technology and, the social media space and the online internet space existed, but the ease of which we can do these things now is only getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker and more and more and more accessible for us. And to do the vast majority of that for either free or a very low cost investment is just insane. Like I have insane gratitude for it. And I also look to the inspiration of the respect for, I should say as well, of anyone who has done it in the past in the way that was much more involved and much more, challenging to actually see your creativity through to its fullest self-expression. So I don't know if any of you have seen the most recent version of Little Women that was made, and it's got Florence Pugh and you know, just this amazing Timothy Chalamet and, like, you know, this amazing cast of actresses and actors. And one of the things that I guess always reinforces for me this gratitude piece is seeing the scene where Jo March is getting her book finally published. And there's a couple of beautiful moments within that movie. The one being where it's the actual process of her writing her book, and she's in her attic room and she's got candles everywhere, and she's just got endless sheets of paper and parchment, and they are stacked all over the floor, and she's rewriting different pages, and it's all so labor intensive and so, you know, unbelievably meticulous in terms of the way that she has had to put this book together using just pen and paper and her, you know, her hand. And they show all these moments of her in the process of kind of pulling this book together, of, you know, like her hand cramping up and she's asleep on the floor, and, you know, having to make sure that things aren't getting messed up within the order of how she's got all her chapters laid out. And just, you know, it just shows the grit and the determination that has to be part of our creative legacy and bringing those things to life. And, you know, I so often think of that whenever I'm sitting down to, say, like, record a podcast episode like this, or film something for my YouTube channel, or, you know, even just like when I'm about to go on Instagram and share some Instagram stories, you know, that the ease of which I can do those things is just mind-blowing compared to what something of that nature used to have to entail. You know, the process of getting your voice heard, and especially as a woman or someone who's female identifying, woman identifying, you know, that process of having our voice heard and sharing our voice used to have so many barriers. And, you know, even in today, like in very much today's day and age, these are things that are very prevalent within our society as a whole across the world. Like, these are still themes that are coming up in terms of the barriers and the oppressive nature against women speaking their voice, and, you know, the inaccessibility that some people still have to sharing their voice and to being able to do their soul work, essentially, because of factors that are far beyond their control, and because of factors that are, you know, social and demographic and political, and, you know, oppressive regimes that have, and structures, you know, within society that have prevented that ease and flow. So for me, it's like that gratitude just roars through whenever I think of that scene. And the other one is within the process of her book actually being produced, the actual physical production of her book, and she walks away with it in her hand, and it shows really beautifully the actual scene of the pages being printed, like all the blocks being arranged just to print one page, the pages being all bound together and then like hand laced, and then the kind of, you know, I want to say tedious, you know, process of the actual like book cover being glued and pasted and all the pages inserted and then folded and pressed, and, you know, even just the binding on the outside of the hardcover of the book, and then through to the stamping of it with gold foil and the careful hand dusting of that. You know, it just shows that process of how these things that we take for granted nowadays in the past used to have so much that was required for that to occur. You know, there was so many steps in that process for that to occur. And now for me, I can sit here in this very spot with my computer, with my Wi-Fi connection, and I can send my manuscript in an electronic format. I can send my cover art in an electronic format. I submit it to my publisher distributor. I use Ingram Spark through my online login portal, and I fill in all my details. I tell them exactly what I want it to, you know, kind of read online in terms of like the listing and the information and the blurb for the book. And literally it is in within a matter of like I think less than 48 hours from when that gets first submitted, my book can be live and available for pre-order potentially, and potentially even order if I set the date, for whatever date it is, right? It just, the gratitude for the ease of how that process happens is just immense within me, because I cannot even have to fathom what a process of book publishing used to look like, in terms of having to not only handwrite your manuscript for a start, right? And all the editing and the layers of, kind of spelling mistakes and grammar and, the technical elements of writing, through to the process of like having to physically take it to editors, to send it in the mail to people, and then have to wait for that process of someone to even just review it and decide if they were going to take it on board through their publisher, through their distributor, through, their publishing house. Like, there are countless stories of books that are now like household names, world famous authors, everyday conversation, like, parts of our social and cultural like language. And yet they were rejected by, upwards of 10, 12 different publishing agencies or houses before they actually got picked up by someone and published for the first time. So, just that gratitude around being able to have the creative control over my legacy and to share my work in a way that I can do it all with so much ease and so effortlessly. And obviously the work goes in on the back end of creating the thing. Like, you still, like, this is not to discount the work that goes into actually creating and producing something, because you have to commit to that. You have to put in the time. And whether that is, like in the case of a podcast, spending the time to prepare or to set up an interview or to record an episode, that takes the time, right? Like, we don't just snap our fingers and have an hour-long podcast episode suddenly magically appear. We still have to do the actual recording. We have to take our time to produce that thing, to whether that's an interview, whether that's a solo episode like this is, like, and my episodes range from ones that I plan out. If I'm doing more like a masterclass style episode, I'll plan out and I'll spend quite a bit of time, kind of like fleshing out what I want the episode to cover. And then there's through to other episodes that are just me hitting record, sitting in my car, or, going out for a walk or something like that, where it's much more off the cuff. It's much more just me talking, riffing. Something's come through that I want to speak to. This is the kind of episode where I might flesh out a few notes that I've got in front of me, just so I can keep my train of thought as I'm going through these 3 different areas of things that I wanted to speak to in today's episode. But, for the large part of it, like vast majority of it, I'm just bringing through whatever's wanting to come through today, to share with you. And then we also have, obviously, in the example of, say, like an interview, the preparation or the energetic intention that goes into that is also something that we commit to and we put the time into, right? We don't just wing it. We don't just go, oh yeah, show up at whatever time. Like, we're doing the work on the back end that is making sure we've got the Zoom link set up. We're making sure that the person who we're interviewing is prepared for the episode. We are maybe sending out some example questions or discussion points, or making sure that is, ready to go for the episode, so that it happens smoothly, right? Like, this is the blending of the divine masculine and the divine feminine within these creative processes. And much the same as if, you've got a YouTube channel, for example, like, there are things that we have to do to make sure that the process is smooth. Like, for anyone who's ever recorded something that is like video oriented, it's its whole own beast. Like, we can flick on audio to record very, very simply and easily. Video requires a whole nother level of like energetic showing up for that medium, not only within our own energy, our own like creative expression of how we might decide to appear within that video, even down to like the lighting and the sound and the camera angle and the tripod and the lens, and even through to, like, I'm thinking examples of some of my incredible women that I've worked with who, like, if you've got young kids, for example, you can go to all this effort of setting up like your video that you are going to record. And if you're constantly getting interrupted by your kids, like, that's a whole thing in itself, because you're not only not able to get into your flow and to get into your groove and to get into the, energetics of the video that you're wanting to create, but, you're literally stopping and starting. And that makes it very difficult sometimes. It's not impossible, of course, but, we sometimes have to learn how to work with these things in whatever way aligns for us. And there are ways that we can navigate it, and there's tools that we can use, and there's the way we can structure those sorts of things to support ourselves if we know that it's just a fact of life that our kids are going to be around while we are creating and sharing our soul work. But I just want to speak to some of these as examples, because I think sometimes it's easy to look at what somebody else has produced creatively, and the comparison comes in of going, oh, well, it's okay for them because they have X, Y, and Z in their life, or, they don't have to deal with this, or, they've got a team of people, or they don't have kids, or whatever the case may be. And I just want to share that permission slip for you to recognize what you do have, and recognize the gratitude for the things that are at your fingertips and are at your disposal, and give yourself permission to do it in your own way. Give yourself that freedom and that kind of sense of mindset unlocking around the fact that, okay, if I've got literally 5 minutes, what can I do with that 5 minutes that's going to work for me, rather than holding myself hostage to some pattern or rhythm or routine or structure that somebody else has found success through, when for my season in life right now, it is what it is. Like, I cannot change this, but I can change my energy, and I can change my intention, and I can change how I desire to show up within that moment, within those 5 minutes. And that's something, like, as a writer as well, I really want to, like, reinforce the fact that, like I was mentioning before, it's less about spending an entire day writing, and it's more about spending intentional time when you leverage the time that you do have, and your own patterns and your own routine and your own energetic rhythm when it comes to, say, your writing, and focusing on that and celebrating that, and forgetting about any of the other noise, and forgetting about any of the other, like, judgments or conditionings that might be there, because they are not serving you. They are not the thing that is going to move the needle forward. Whereas if you go, you know what, I only got 100 words written today, that's okay. It's better than nothing, right? Like, we have to keep moving forward and go, you know what, I didn't hit my goal today. If you have a word count goal, for example, but that's all right, because I know there are going to be days when I write more. And I know there are going to be times when I manage to sneak in another 5 minutes, or, have inspiration come through at a time when actually the kids are really quiet and they're happily playing, and I can bang out a few things, that are an unexpected bonus, for example. These are the moments when we get to show up for our artistry and our creativity without putting judgments and boxes around it that are, kind of from that energy of, like, seeing all the ways it's wrong and going, actually, you know what, how can I have gratitude for all the ways that this is amazing and this is incredible, and, like, holy fucking shit, like, look how easy this is for me to create something and repurpose it in all the ways and all the places, and share about it and market myself, that never existed before now. Like, it's never been easier. And yes, there are things that are, let's say, like, irritations within the process of, say, social media and the online landscape, and it's not perfect, and there are things that do come along that are very real systemic issues, or things that can prevent us from maybe having quite the same reach in an organic sense as some other accounts or people online. But I personally choose to not worry about that, because I still have got something at my fingertips that is fucking miraculous and has allowed me to reach like 100% more people than if I was to rely on like in-person word of mouth, like, kind of ways and means of sharing about my soul work and selling books, for example. So I will always, always, always be a stand for the ease of online business and the effortless nature of the fact that I can literally be doing it from like cuddling my dogs on my couch in my pajamas. Like, that to me is just the most miraculous thing ever. And the gratitude I have for that is just so fucking huge. So I wanted to speak to that. And then thirdly, what I wanted to share about was around how our creative legacy that we are sharing, this artistry, this absolute soul expression that we are sharing and giving to the world, that we are following, that we deserve support within that. I think that's the biggest message I want to kind of partake with this part of this episode, is that your creativity deserves support and your artistry deserves support. And it's up to you to kind of co-create with the universe and set the intention around what that support looks and feels like that is the best for you. Because I'm not talking about this from the sense of support from like your mum, your dad, your partner, your kids, your best friend from high school. Like, I'm not talking about that kind of support. While that is amazing, I would say that, by far and large, from the creatives that I've worked with, from the creatives that I've supported, those are not the demographic that you are typically marketing your soul work to or your creativity to. They might be. There might be a, beautiful coincidence or, dovetailing of the two, which is wonderful if that's the case. But for the vast, vast, vast majority of us, actually our families or our immediate circles, if anything, can become a hindrance to our creativity, because we're suddenly limiting ourselves, we're suddenly censoring ourselves, we're suddenly dimming our light because we're worried about what they might think or what they might say, or, all of these things that can come in that add layers and layers and layers to blocking our creative channel and to blocking our creative flow. So what I do want to say is that within desiring support and deserving support along your creative journey is that you get to set the intention around what that looks like. And one of the best places to start, I personally find, is immersing yourself within the environment that you desire to be embodying, right? And embracing. And for me, what that looked like is that once I knew I was stepping into my embodiment as an author and really allowing myself to own that part of me and vocalize that part of me and to express to the world, to my community, that, hey, this is what I'm here to be. This is who I'm here to be. This is what I'm here to share. That once I'd allowed myself that permission slip, then I really went through and had a pretty ruthless process of making sure that that environment, particularly in the online space, because that's predominantly where my energy is when I'm kind of interacting with others, that I was surrounded by examples of what I desired to be as an author, like the embodiment of me as an author, surrounding myself by examples of people who were doing and being and living and breathing what I wanted, what I desired. And also, like, not just following any old author because they're like a bestseller or because they're who everyone else follows, right? Like, I still had the curation and the eye for going, is this someone who is inspiring me and expanding me, or am I just following this person out of kind of duty or obligation, or because everybody else is following them and so therefore I should be following them, for example. So for me, it was very much that process of supporting myself with those who were expanders for me, those who were examples of what was possible for me, and examples of people who have done the thing I want to do, right? Like that was my first starting point in supporting myself. Like I needed to have that in terms of in my vision and in my awareness and in my sphere all the time, to just keep touching base with that dream and that desire and that vision for myself through the examples that I could see every day of like how other people were doing it, how they were, already living and breathing and being the example of what I desired for myself. And so that was really crucial. That was that was actually probably the first thing I did. And I went through and either unfollowed or muted anyone, including best friends, including, biz besties, including mentors and other people that I absolutely adore. Like I had to turn off all of that noise of anything that wasn't aligned with that vision, because I couldn't invest my energetic currency and frequency into things that were not a match for that vision for myself as an author and for where I desired to go as being an author, right? Doesn't mean that you can't still dip in and out of their world and be connected and, be supportive of your people and be, absolutely developing and nurturing your community. Like I still go and do those things every day, but I do it with that intention behind it around going like, okay, if I am opening up Instagram, what am I doing here? Where am I giving my energy here? And so I will intentionally go in and connect with, say, okay, who are my people that I want to make sure that I have, seen what they've created and engaged with it and, commented and liked and, done the things that are genuinely what I would do if they were if I was in person with that person. How would I speak to them? How would I connect with them? And then I'm looking for, the people who are my soul people, my soul community, my clients, like those people that I'm connecting to and supporting their work and sharing the love with them as much as they're, like I'm in that energy of like, hey, I'm here to support you. I'm here to, yes, be a mentor for you, but I'm also here to be a fucking cheerleader for you because like you're amazing at what you're doing and your creative self-expression is fucking epic. So, I'm intentionally putting my energy in those places. And then once I'm beyond that, that's where I'm then looking at, okay, how am I nurturing my community? How am I supporting my community? How am I going in and looking at these really fucking cool people who are in my world and who are watching my stories and who are liking on my stuff and commenting on my things and sharing my posts? Like, who are these people and what are they doing? And like, the most incredible souls, just like you listening and watching, with this podcast episode, right? Like seeing that in action is so fucking inspiring. And it just absolutely reinforces for me time and time again, like, this is why I do what I do. This is why I share what I share. This is what I show up for within my soul work, and allowing myself that permission to invest energetically in that process of connecting when it's that right moment to do so. I'm not just mindlessly allowing everything into my field. I'm taking the time to do it in a very intentional manner. And then I am disconnecting from that, and I'm going into my creative process. Like I am allowing myself to then be immersed in my creativity, whether it is recording something like this to share on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, clips through Instagram, for example, that are getting repurposed from these videos and these audio clips, whether it is spending time with my writing, whether it is editing, whether it is, creation of resources or things that I know are going to serve my community, my people, writing an email, for example, sitting down with my cuppa and writing an email like I did this morning, to send out to my list. Like these are all things that I'm really taking that time to make sure that I am showing up for that in the way that is supporting myself, right? Like I'm really making sure that that is the non-negotiable, that I'm surrounding myself with that support, not only from others, the environment I'm around, but also like the support I'm showing myself is just as important. Like, I think we can end up talking a lot about like the external sources of support, which is very valid. But I think we have to remember that we are our own greatest support at the end of the day. Doesn't mean we can't have support from others. It doesn't mean we don't deserve support from others. Of course not. But, you know, we have to be our number one biggest fan when we are sharing our creativity and when we're sharing our legacy and when we're creating our legacy that we are then giving to the world, right? Like, that is ultimately what we're all here for, is to recognize that we are our own biggest fans and our own biggest champions and our own biggest support, and we are good within that, right? Like, that's where we get into the energy of not seeking external validation, of not getting the little like hits of dopamine whenever somebody like shares our reel, for example. That's when we're not looking for the, you know, oh, how many views did I get on my story? You know, oh, it's less than yesterday. What does that mean about me? You know, when we can step back from all of that noise and be our own greatest support, that's when we're then able to show up for our artistry and our creativity in our power and within that beautiful kind of energy of that we're good within our own energy. But of course, it is wonderful, and it is absolutely all part of our kind of birthright to have that given to us as well, or receive that from the world around us as well. So, you know, what I also find within that is that when we're talking about receiving support externally, is again to really focus on, for me personally, really focusing on looking to find the support from those who have done what I desire to do, who are the examples and the expanders and the demonstration of what is possible. So, you know, I am super highly curated with who I allow into my field in terms of taking on board advice or mentorship or inspiration, or, you know, even just like learning from. And so I really, you know, want to give you that permission slip to make sure that you are doing the same for yourself. But also, like, if you aren't already surrounding yourself by that environment of who is supporting me, who is already doing the thing that I desire to do, like, you know, give yourself that expression of being able to support yourself by surrounding yourself by that. And that doesn't mean that it always has to be paid containers or paid programs or a paid mentor. We of course get immeasurable value out of investing in those things, and I do truly believe that investing in our soul work is part of the journey, like part of that learning and part of that creative self-expression, because there are elements there depending on, you know, again, our human blueprint, soul expression, soul blueprint, whatever, karmic ties, karmic bonds. Like, there are going to be things that tie in with, you know, when we energetically invest through monetary means, that commits us in a way that is suddenly on a frequency of like, this is fucking serious, right? So like for myself, one of the big things was actually taking that step to invest in not only a book mentor, like, you know, someone who is there for me in that capacity of like, I can voice note them, we have calls when we need to, like, we have that energetic space for being able to talk about all the things to do with the journey of bringing my book to life, and that mentorship of someone who had already published before me. So they, you know, they already were ahead of me in that sense of, not ahead of me, but they had gone on that journey before me. And so they were ahead in the terms of they had already trodden a path that I was desiring to go down. And that was worth its weight in gold in terms of being able to invest in that. So I wasn't spending time trying to figure it out, right? Because of course we can, but I personally was like, no, for me to commit to this and to actually do the thing, I need that person with me throughout that journey. And then also to invest in my editor, you know, to actually take my art seriously in terms of my creativity in my writing to invest in an editor who was going to make sure that that was the best that it could be, and it's a serious investment to invest in a book editor, right? Like, this is not just something that's like $100. This is like, we're talking thousands of dollars to invest in a book to then bring something to life that is a legacy piece. Like, this is a book that is going to be selling, or my books, sorry, as a whole collectively are going to be selling, for potentially hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Like, these are things that we, again, have to separate the linear or old paradigm return on investment style things. And we have to remember that, like, these legacy pieces that we're bringing to life are going to be around for a very, very long time. So of course we're going to invest in them. Of course we're going to make sure that we are showing up for our work, for our artistry, for our creativity. And that support that comes from investing at that financial level takes it to a whole new kind of echelon, right? However, we also can invest at that level of just making sure that we've got the tools and the things that don't necessarily have to have a monetary tag attached. Like, we can absolutely do these things without that monetary investment. But I do personally believe that if we are ready to step into that next level, then at some point along that journey, we are going to have some kind of financial exchange, right? Like, we're going to have some kind of financial investment, and supporting ourselves, for me, has always been something that I have been prepared to invest in, because I know the value for me personally of having a very curated, like, energetic frequency, that I don't want to have to be trawling the internet for all the different advice. I don't want to have to be spending hours on YouTube trying to find the different steps to be able to DIY it. I want to be able to go to the person who I know is my energetic frequency and is in harmony with me. Because I can't tell you the number of times, I've watched something on YouTube, for example, and I'm only purely watching it for like the one piece of information that I need. And it's like the energetic misalignment of the person who is presenting the information, that they're going to be a perfect match for someone else, but for me, it's just not my thing, right? Like, it's not my vibe. And so for me, investing in someone who I know is always going to be my vibe, and who supports my nervous system to feel soothed and to feel taken care of and to feel confident in terms of what I'm doing, and to be able to have that ongoing relationship as well, so that I can come in with something that is within the perfect context of where I'm at on my journey. Like, all of those things have been so incredibly powerful for me in terms of the support piece behind the scenes. And, I think that that's something as well that I truly believe is a really powerful thing to remember within our creative journeys, is that support looks different for everyone and has a number of different elements to it. And the more we can give ourselves that permission to turn within and to trust our own intuition around, okay, what do I need? What do I desire for support? Because again, even just depending on things like our human design, like support and our needs when it comes to support is going to look very, very vastly different for, say, someone who is a splenic manifester as opposed to someone who is a mental projector like myself, as opposed to someone who is a sacral generator, as opposed to someone who is an emotional mani-gen, for example. So these are all things for us to, the more we can understand ourselves and trust ourselves as we move through that, is really fucking powerful. So I hope this has given you lots of food for thought around your own creative journey and your own creative self-expression. It's something that, I've been feeling that calling to come and speak to on the podcast and to really just share about, because I think these are the things, as I say, don't make the list of like how to self-publish or how to share your podcast or how to create your YouTube channel. And I think it's really important that we have these bigger piece conversations around the emotional intelligence that goes into it, the emotional journey that goes into it, the the need for our energetic alignment and support within the way that we're showing up to do our soul work. So I would love if you have thoughts or aha moments, or this has given you some inspiration, like make sure to come and share with me. Tag me if you're listening along. You can screenshot and tag me on Instagram. I fucking love seeing where you're listening in from. And of course, if any of this is feeling like a vibe for you, Successful Witches School is open and enrolling and welcoming you in with the invitation to come and join us. This is my flagship program for 2023, where when you come in, you receive immediate access to Intuitive Empire and Soul-Filled Socials, which are my 2 online courses that are basically like one big, beautiful ball of witchy, intuitive soul business goodness, teaching you everything from how to work with your human design, your astrology, your gene keys when it comes to social media, marketing, sales, and through to how to create your online courses, your programs, your evergreen offers, maybe a live group program, to really look at how your business can be set up to serve and support you and to allow for yourself to expand into that creativity, because that's where Intuitive Empire was really born out of, that need to allow people like yourself to expand beyond that capacity of, say, working one-on-one, and to have the resources and things within your business that free up your time and allow you to actually be doing the thing that you want to be doing, that goes beyond simply one-on-one coaching or one-on-one sessions, or, always that kind of need for your energy in that one-to-one environment, to expand into evergreens or scalable programs and offers and courses that align in with your soul calling, your soul work. And then during 2023 with Successful Witches School, we have monthly, or moonly I should say, live Q&As going throughout the whole year. We're starting in January, and these are like incredible hot seat coaching, soul business Q&As, mastermindy type environments to come and be part of on that regular basis throughout the whole year. Because I know personally how having longer term containers and that ability to be able to be nourished and supported throughout a 12-month process has just been so fucking transformational within my own business. So I'm really so fucking excited to be able to come and now offer and facilitate that for people just like yourself. You also receive during the year, we're going to have 4 incredible guest speakers coming in who are going to present guest masterclasses. And those details are going to be confirmed at the start of the year. And then seasonal masterclasses with myself, bonus masterclasses that are going to be on specific areas and transmissions to do with all things witchy business. So there is so much going on. There is so much magic happening in this container. It is a one-off investment. So this is not like a membership or some ongoing thing. We have the one-off investment, and you receive all of the programs and you receive all of the calls for the full 12 months. We have a pay in full option. We have a 12-month payment plan option. And there is also, at the moment, while it's still on early bird, an 18-month extended payment plan available. So there are all the ways that this is accessible to you to come in wherever you're at on your journey. And this is just going to be such a beautiful environment to be surrounded by other witchy, intuitive, magical, modern, mystic women, goddesses who are all on that same journey of soul expression, soul-led creativity, creating your legacy, sharing your legacy with the world. Whether you're a writer, whether you're an author, whether you're an artist, a podcaster, YouTuber, like this is really going to be a space that allows you to be supported and nurtured throughout 2023. And if you could picture yourself in a year's time, this time, next year in 2023, if you're listening to this at the time that the episode comes out, like just imagine the possibility of what can change within that year, and how a space like this, I'm just so cannot wait to dive in and support beautiful magical souls just like yourself to go on that journey and to actually see that through to the vision, and support you and hold you within the steps that you're taking towards that vision. So I welcome you to come and check it out. Your invitation is linked up in the show notes with this episode. I love you so much. You are so fucking magical, and I will be seeing you very, very soon, my gorgeous. Mwah.